This morning, Fort Worth Mayor Maddie Parker.
The eighth largest economy in the world needs a world-class education system, and we don't have it right now. That's our reality.
With an interesting take on the state legislature's biggest priority.
I'm encouraging our residents here, school leadership, teachers, stop worrying about vouchers. Just focus on what really matters. And absolutely.
She explains why and lays out her priorities for the new year. Plus, getting ready for 2025, the one campaign promise from Donald Trump that worries folks in South Texas. Mayor Javier Villalobos from McAllen this morning. No state has more farms than Texas, farms that rely on migrant labor. So how would a mass deportation affect Trump country? Mayor Cole Stanley is with us from Amarillo. And a lot happening politically over the next month. The roundtable this morning on what to watch for in Austin and in D.C.
Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Good Sunday morning, I'm Jason Whiteley. Just a couple days left here before 2025, and our program this morning will look a little different. We sought out influential mayors from across the state to talk about what the new year will look like politically in their cities. And our first stop is in Fort Worth. We met Mayor Maddie Parker at her office in City Hall to talk about her own priorities and why she is encouraging her constituents to stop worrying about school vouchers. Mayor Parker, thanks for having us over.
Yeah, thank you. Good to see you.
Absolutely. Let's start wide here. Two biggest priorities for 2025. What are they?
I think it's a continuation of what we've been doing in city government. I think we're on a great path in the city of Fort Worth. It's hard for me to believe it'll be 2025. I'll have been mayor 4 years in May. So I think big priorities include a smooth transition between city managers, where I'm thrilled that Jay Chapa has accepted the offer, obviously voted on Tuesday, and he'll take the helm on the 27th of January, but have a little bit of overlap with David Cook. And we'll be pretty quickly there into the legislative session, which I know you cover very closely, to see what's happening, how that impacts cities like Fort Worth, and then preparing for the next budget year. Fort Worth, I believe strongly, has really managed our growth in a smart way. It's hard when you're almost 1 million people now, one of the fastest growing large cities in the country.
The council made it a point last year to adopt a zero tax increase, no new revenue. Can you do it again?
I think we can. Honestly, it'll be maybe even tougher revenue year, budget year for the city of Fort Worth. Look, we have a responsibility to listen to voters and listen to residents, and especially in this kind of strange economy, we'll see what it looks like into 2025, 2026, but property taxes continue to be a hot topic. You know this as well. It is interesting, you have several bills already filed to abolish property taxes. Look, I have to remind people this all the time. In Texas, we are a two-legged stool. We only have property tax and sales tax to really fund municipal government. We don't get a check from the state of Texas. And if you want to have great roads and streets and street lights and parks and playgrounds and, oh, by the way, police officers and firefighters when you call 911, you're going to have to pay for that somehow. And we really focus hard on how do you hold that property tax rate as low as possible to also deliver excellent city services on behalf of residents. So I'm hopeful we can do that again year over year. That's always the goal, to keep it compressed as much as possible. But last year was unique because of revenues being down.
Let's talk about school vouchers for a moment. How would that impact the city if it passes? Because that's a huge GOP priority right now.
It is. Look, and I actually said this last session, let's focus on what really matters. And what really matters to me in the city of Fort Worth, and should matter for every Texan, by the way, is that every single student has access to a high quality education. I don't care where your kids go to school, Jason. I don't care if it's public or private or charter school. I don't care if they homeschool. Every parent deserves that choice. I do think school vouchers, ESAs, will pass this session. All the writing is on the wall. So I want to work with leadership at 4th ISD, all 12 districts across the city of Fort Worth, to advocate on what they need to be successful as a traditional public school. Because at the end of the day in Texas, there are so many kids here in our state. By the way, 1 out of every 10 children in America now are Texans. You cannot pass a bill large enough to supplant what is really traditional public education. But I'm encouraging our residents here, school leadership, teachers, stop worrying about vouchers. Just focus on what really matters. And absolutely. I think it really, last bill, for instance, last session, and they may try to pass something more aggressive. I don't know what the priority is going to be. It was 40,000 ESAs. and it was prioritized for low income and special needs children.
But the governor wants universal. He wants this to be available to everybody.
Well, and look, I don't totally disagree with him. If the premise is, if you're a family that's low income in a specific zip code and your schools are failing, you should have just the same ability to move your student into a better performing school for your family as I do.
What do districts say, though, when you say, don't worry about that?
They may not agree, look,
Yeah?
but I think the ones that understand that we all need to make progress. What I want superintendents to be saying is I want my school district to be given the amount of money I need to have the highest performing students and classrooms across my entire district. That should be the focus, right? The 8th largest economy in the world needs a world-class education system, and we don't have it right now. That's our reality. Yeah. We shouldn't be 42nd, we should be first, and let's aspire to be the best, and it's gonna take people working together and kind of putting their political differences aside.
I-35, the North Freeway, is still one of the most congested roads in Texas.
Yeah.
You and I have talked about transportation before, then you have the West Freeway, it's getting worse as Aledo grows to the west here. What does the city want from the state when it comes to transportation?
Right now, I think we're prioritizing projects the right way. I have a great working relationship with our district office here, David Salazar, focusing on really a new map process for the City of Fort Worth District to understand what our priority projects need to be, what needs to be funded. I very much believe that we have to think about transit differently in Fort Worth and Dallas and Arlington and Plano, Frisco, this whole region. Well, first of all, you have 3 metropolitan transit agencies. We're working through a process right now with the COG to understand what it would look like to create a better regional system. Table that for a second. The City of Fort Worth is excited. We're going to be expanding TexRail from downtown into the medical district. We're working on finalizing those plans and fully funding that project, which is significant for us because TexRail has been incredibly successful. But you also have to think about the legacy system of the TRE. Let's double track it, put new vehicles on that system. Bertrand Dresky has made that a priority project for Trinity Metro. And lastly, what does transit look like into the future? I've often said people have been frustrated when we don't have a traditional subway system. I think that's actually a gift. If you talk to cities in Boston, New York, those are very important transportation systems, but they're very expensive. They're unfunded, billions and millions of dollars to just really improve them. So we have the chance in 2025 and beyond to think about what transit and transportation looks like into the future.
Mayor, good luck to you. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Jason. Always good to see you. Pleasure.
When we come back this morning, Donald Trump's one campaign promise that is worrying folks in South Texas. And how would a mass deportation affect the farms in the Panhandle in Trump country? The mayors from McAllen and Amarillo up next when Inside Texas Politics returns.
This is Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley.
Welcome back to Inside Texas Politics on this final weekend of 2024. South Texas is Trump country now. It voted overwhelmingly for him last month, but folks there are waiting to see how the president-elect's policies on the border might directly affect them. Our next guest is the Republican mayor of McAllen, Javier Villalobos, who explains some of the concern that residents in the valley now have. Mayor, welcome back to our program here. How do you expect the border is going to change with the second Trump administration?
Well, actually, we're not 100% sure what's going to happen. My understanding is that it's going to be a little bit tougher for, asylum seekers. And for us, my biggest concern is the attack right now on NGOs and whether we're going to be funded to assist the federal government. Our position has always been it's not our business, but we assist to keep our residents safe, and we have done very well. So if things stay the way they are, we're okay. I mean, here in McAllen, we've been okay for a long time. However, it depends what's going to happen with a new administration.
I remember speaking to you last year, and you were saying that there's no line item in the budget for any type of immigration services at all. But if NGOs get shut down or required not to work with undocumented migrants, what kind of burden does that put on the city, if at all?
Well, actually, it is a burden that we've had before, even before my time. If that doesn't happen, well, we hope then that it's a lot harder. And it might not sound good, but it's a lot harder for the asylum seekers to come in, because then it really would be a burden in our community.
Mayor, President-elect Trump has promised a mass deportation. How would that impact McAllen?
I think if it were to happen, I think we're going to have issues with our economy, because at the very end, look, I've always said it. There's a lot of people that can be very productive, and we should try to help them come here and produce for us and assist their families. Now, if it's people that have issues, criminal or otherwise, then we definitely don't want that. But there's a lot of people that I know can help us, that can help our economy stay strong.
The president-elect has already threatened a 25% tariff on goods from Mexico, from China, and from Canada. How's that going to impact cross-border trade there at the bridges?
Well, actually, that's something that's kind of concerning us a little bit. Our economy, especially post COVID, has been tremendous. And a lot of it has to do with importing and exporting. If it were to be reduced, it won't necessarily just affect here because a lot of the goods are shipped out of here, south and north. So it's going to affect everybody. We've done a study. Actually, no, the state of Texas did a study of how the traffic flows through the Rio Grande Valley. Within a couple of days, trucks that pass through here are throughout the whole United States. They're delivering, they're doing whatever they need to do and come back. So I know that if things were to slow down, it won't just slow down the Rio Grande Valley. It'll slow down, I think, the whole economy.
Because Donald Trump got reelected, Texas leaders here say they're going to pare back the investment at the border with the Department of Public Safety. Last time I was there, I was in McAllen, and DPS was filling up hotels and restaurants. If the state pares back some of these troopers there in the valley, how's that going to impact the local economy?
I think it will not much because we are blessed that we are very strong. I know that Operation Lone Star infused a lot of money in the area, McAllen and throughout. And of course, it was beneficial. So while some would argue that they were just spending money, well, it was being spent here in McAllen and the surrounding areas. And now we get into the issue of public safety. We came in last year as the third safest city in the country. So did that have any role in it? I'm not sure. But to us, it was beneficial.
Mayor, it's good to see you again. Thank you for the time.
You bet. Anytime.
All right, now to the other end of the state, the Texas Panhandle and Amarillo. Every city is struggling right now to hire new police officers, but Amarillo is seeing a lot of applicants there. The mayor of Amarillo, Cole Stanley, took our questions from City Hall and told us the high-profile abortion travel ban that failed this year, that's likely to get resurrected next year. Mayor Stanley, welcome back to the program here. Let's talk about the priorities for 2025 that's now upon us here. Two biggest priorities, what are they for you?
I would say that infrastructure and public safety have been our two top priorities since we got elected. So I sit on a really strong team. This council works really diligently and really hard. And so what you've seen us prioritize is we've got to be putting those monies first and foremost into public safety. And really for us, retention and hiring was diminishing at roughly 10% annually. We've put $10,000 for each individual sworn officer in both police and fire as a pay increase here in this last budget. And we've seen a 20% increase now in retention. So as an example, we normally have 75 candidates that apply for our academy, and this last academy had over 200.
Mayor, last time we had you on the program here, we were talking about the effort to stop people from traveling through the streets and roads of Amarillo on their way to New Mexico for an abortion. That issue went to voters. Voters rejected the travel ban. The first city in the state to do so, I believe. Do you expect this issue, though, to resurface?
Yes, I do. It really hasn't gone away. And so what you saw council do its job in taking this and allowing it to go to the ballot. So right. We negotiated, we tried to amend some of the things that, the drive-through provision and the roadway restrictions just were not enforceable. They potentially aren't constitutional. They're not legal within my jurisdictional bounds.
Do you think this will come back up, though, and go back to council or before voters?
I definitely see that there's still work left to be done. So I don't think as a pro-life mayor, you should say that, the state's done everything that it ever needs to do and that local doesn't need to do anything. Where we got off was we had a group of petitioners that said, well, you have to do all of these things or else we won't take any of it. And because they were not willing to amend it, it went to the voting public and it did fail, but it failed on two measures. One was an extraterritorial jurisdictional reach, and that was, considered governmental overreach. And two, interstate commerce and interstate travel and the private right of action trying to regulate some of those things that you really need to be publicly enforcing. And so I myself and this council, I think, still have an appetite to try to take those measures that we were taking prior to having this removed from our ability.
There's been a lot of talk about President Trump's mass deportation plan, and I've been reading some stories up there in the Panhandle about the impact that might have on farms and farmers who rely on migrant workers up there. What kind of impact do you think this will have?
In our community, we have a strong Hispanic population, and we rely very heavily on some of those hardworking Mexican families and individuals, and that's a good thing. And so most of them are here legally. We love our Hispanic population, and they live and work here, and it won't affect them in a negative way. You're predominantly talking about other ethnicities and other countries that have migrated across the border that they're not contributing to the workforce that we rely on. So I would say that most of the impact that we're going to feel won't be in our farm and ranch and our ag. What you're going to see is the impact in those larger cities, I believe.
Mayor Stanley, always good to talk to you. I appreciate the time, sir.
Thank you, sir. Always good to be on with you. Appreciate you.
The final roundtable of the year when we come back here on Inside Texas Politics. And on Wednesday, a brand new law takes effect. Vehicle inspections are going away. Not the emissions inspections, just vehicle inspections, but safety checks on your car. Researchers say that is likely to have some downsides for all of us. This new episode of Y'all-itics is out right now wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley.
All right, time now for Reporters Roundtable to put the headlines in perspective. Joining us each week, I am Mitra from the Texas Tribune. Bud Kennedy is here from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, and Bernadine Steptoe, political producer at WFAA in Dallas. 2024, Bud, was not a good year for Democrats. They're going into this next legislative session here in a couple of weeks. Are they going to have any influence at all?
Jason, I can't see how. I think they're one step above libertarians right now. There are just more of them. They have floor privileges. I don't know whether they can get much done in the legislature. You know, the best known Democrat in the state now might be Mayor Whitmire, and he's not the most visible champion of the party. I think that what you have there, they have to get over fights over abortion, over vouchers. They have to work together with Republicans on issues like higher ed. There's even centrist support for expanding Medicaid, things like that they could work on that will at least get some crossover support.
But Ian, they do have floor privileges, as Bud pointed out there. But at the end of the day here, Republicans are the ones fighting right now. Might the Democrats kind of be needed in here and swoop in at the last minute to help out?
I mean, that certainly, as votes on key legislation come in, they'll be needed. But also, to your point about kind of Republicans fighting too, this is, the Democrats have an image problem here that they're trying to rectify as well, and so they have an opportunity, limited, but one that can allow them to kind of show a little bit more unity within their party, and then this offers them a chance to focus on messaging rather than just on driving legislation too. They got feedback about how they were kind of not representing middle class, not representing working class voters. This is their opportunity to kind of use that opportunity to do that messaging and seem like the party that's more aligned with voters.
And Bernadine, they do have an image problem, as we talked about here on the program. But like Bud said, who are the Democrats that are that well known statewide? Mayor Whitmire, Clay Jenkins in Dallas County, Andy Brown in Travis County. Who's out there leading them right now?
Well, apparently they don't have a leader who has done well. But I'll go back to they will have opportunities. Only that the reason is that the Republicans are fighting. And so you could have some of the Republicans going to the Democrats to try to get those votes, but it's not going to be on any major legislation. But they do have an image problem, and I think that the changes that they've made, they have a new chairperson. They're going to have a new party. The Democratic caucus chairperson is new. They're going to have a new state party chair. So it is an opportunity for them to regroup, because worrying about getting legislation passed is not going to be to their best benefit.
And one of the biggest pieces of legislation, Bud, that's out there is a school voucher program. We don't yet know which way this is going to go, what a bill would look like. But do you think that lawmakers, Republican lawmakers, are going to be able to come together to get this passed this year after what Governor Abbott did, primarying so many of them?
I think the question is not what's going to get passed in the voucher bill, but what's going to get passed for public schools. Texas has the chance now to show that when you say school choice, you want the choice between two good school systems. You know, the vouchers in private schools should be a relief for the public schools. They shouldn't be a siphon off funds. And so Texas has a chance to really build a complete education system. We'll see how far they go.
And how far do you think it might go, Ian?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how the public education financing debate and the school voucher debate go. You know, last time we saw kind of an omnibus bill that was being debated, and now there's talk about kind of separating the legislation. You know, Governor Abbott has called for universal school choice. What exactly that means in terms of, like, now we're down to the nitty gritty. What kind of accountability measures are in place? How many students are we talking about? You know, once you start to add up those numbers, it gets pretty expensive. And so those are the things that are going to be debated that we're going to have to watch out for.
And of course, Texas teachers, Bernadine, do want a pay raise. They've been waiting on a pay raise. Lawmakers will have a $20 billion surplus when they return next month.
Well, they're not guaranteed to get it. Because as Ian and Bud has said, there are going to be other issues they need to work through. And in the past legislation, it didn't appear as if that was a priority for our legislators. So they're not guaranteed to get it. And their voting history doesn't indicate that they have any kind of political strength to make those legislators pass it. But it's something that we should wait and see.
And $20 billion surplus, though, Bud, that does open up some opportunity for spending perhaps on teacher pay raises. You know, you can argue over whether there's a priority or not. It hasn't passed, so I think Bernadine does have a point. It might not be a priority right now.
Well, you know, and Texas needs to remember they worked hard to build this charter school system of public schools. They don't want that to get lost in this discussion.
All right. Guys, thanks so much. We appreciate it, and thank you for watching as well. We're back next Sunday to take you inside Texas politics. Hope you have a great new year, and we will see you then. Take care.